Good evening and welcome to the May 27th, 2010 meeting of the Radnor Township Environmental Advisory Council. We will start our agenda, as always, with review and approval of the minutes of the prior meeting, which occurred on April 22nd, and those minutes were distributed for review. Does anyone have any corrections or changes to the minutes? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Minutes are approved. Thank you. And Ann Poulin, who normally takes minutes for us, is not here this evening, but thank you to Sloan Walker, who volunteered to take minutes for this meeting. We very much appreciate it. Okay, great. Right. Moving on to announcements. I have a couple of announcements. Wanted to remind folks that are interested in touring the Pico Green Roof, as we announced at our last meeting. They have a nice opportunity to learn about green roof technology. The Philadelphia Horticultural Society is sponsoring a tour of the Pico Green Roof down in Center City at their headquarters building. It's, I understand, the largest green roof in Philadelphia, and the tours will be occurring the third Tuesday of every month in 2010. So the next one will be on June 15th. July 20th, and so on, from 5 to 6 p.m. Pre-registration is required, but it's a nominal fee, $10 or $5 if you're a horticulture member. So just want to pass that along in case anyone's interested in checking that out. In addition, wanted to make an announcement of the Skunk Hollow Community Farm is having a spring harvest party on Saturday, June 5th from 10 to noon down at the Willows Cottage. And as I understand it, they had involved some of the middle school children in planting down there, planting fruits and vegetables and healthy snacks. And I guess they're going to be harvesting this now. So if anyone is interested, invited to come out. It's a free event, but they do request pre-registration through the Radnor Conservancy. I think that's all that I had. Does anybody else have any?
What was that date?
That was on June 5th?
June 5th.
June 5th from 10 a.m. to noon.
Okay.
I can read this, just a little bit more information. Greener Partners Seed to Snack program, sponsored by the Conservancy, brought Skunk Hollow Farm to the classroom this spring. Students planted seeds, learned about composting, made garden signs, and tasted locally grown food. The seedlings were nurtured in Greener Partners' greenhouse and transported into Skunk Hollow Farm. Now it's time for the children to see what's growing on the farm and learn how to use the local food to make tasty and healthy snacks. Okay. Does anyone else have other announcements? No? Okay. All right. We are going to move one item around on our agenda. That is the Board of Health report. We're going to move that up ahead of the work group reports this evening, just to accommodate a scheduling change.
Thank you, and thank you for your indulgence on that. The EAC membership may recall that a couple of months ago you had some testimony presented to you with regard to the township's leash law, and particularly with extending that to cats, and that was, I think, properly, referred to the Board of Health for follow-up, and we have been following up on that, and in a couple of different ways. Turns out that basically that issue has been expanded somewhat, because there are two matters with regard to cats in our township, and they're related only in the fact that they both concern cats, but they're separate because one issue concerns feral cats, that is, cats that have been born into or reverted to a wild-like state. And we actually have at least 3 colonies of feral cats in our township, ranging from Garrett Hill area to the west end of the Radnor Trail. And that's 2 of the colonies. Another one is also in the western end of the township. Dr. Len Donato has been working with community groups. Len Donato is a veterinarian who is a member of the Board of Health, and he's been working with community groups, and they had some success in Garrett Hill in terms of alleviating the problem, but what happens is you create a vacuum in a colony of cats, and other cats step into that vacuum, and so pretty soon you're back up to full strength. And we had some testimony at our last Board of Health meeting from a citizen of Radnor Township who presented some information that we may be looking at in terms of helping us to deal with the issue. And it actually has a name. It's trap, neuter, and release, which means that you trap the feral cats, have them neutered or spayed, and then release them back. And this has the benefit of being for those citizens who are concerned that the cats will be euthanized, that has never been an issue, as a matter of fact, in Radnor Township. We haven't, even in previous roundups, euthanized any of the cats. As a matter of fact, Dr. Donato, I believe, has one or two of them that he has re-domesticated, and they are his cats right now. So at any rate, the trap, neuter, and release program has some advantages in that the cats can't obviously reproduce, and they're less aggressive, so that they're gradually the populations will die down. So we're looking at that as a possible way of working on the problem. And again, I should emphasize with the support of local community groups who are also interested in the problem. The other feline issue concerns cats who actually belong to people. They're people's pets, but who are allowed to roam at will in the township and provide a nuisance as well as a potential source of future feral cats. So we've been looking at that in terms of the township's animal control ordinances, which fall under Chapter 115 of the township's ordinances. And 115-7 is an ordinance that supplies us with our leash law for dogs, and 115-10 has its provisions enable the Director of Community Development to prohibit the free roaming of cats in the event that there is a case of rabies in the township or any surrounding township. And Dr. Donato and I provided testimony on both these points, actually, to the township commissioners last month. And so we are actually, like the AAC, an advisory body, and of course we can't enact any changes to ordinances on our own. But we're in the process of reviewing those two paragraphs in Chapter 115, 115-7 and 115-10, to see if they can't be changed so as to enable us to get a better handle on what we need to do with cats, domestic cats, in the event of rabies outbreaks in our township or surrounding townships. The only other item, very briefly, is the Delaware County Commissioners recently received a report which was discussed a couple of weeks ago from Johns Hopkins University with regard to an issue which has been around for quite a while, and that is the fact that Delaware County, unlike many other counties, especially those that surround us, Montgomery, Philadelphia, Chester, does not have a county board health department, county health department, and that sometimes results in problems that I don't want to go into in detail, but it takes longer to do certain things. There aren't, the state has to interact with many different township boards of health and township commissioners in the event of issues like the H1N1 last fall. And instead of interacting with one body to streamline and make the processes like the distribution of vaccines more efficient. So the Board of Health of Radnor Township is looking at that report, and we're in the process of, again, making some recommendations that we will undoubtedly pass through the township commissioners, but we want to perhaps open a dialogue with the county commissioners that will at least let them know what our views are on that issue. And again, thanks for your indulgence on that. Any questions?
Thank you for your report. Does the direction in which you're going on this cat issue seem to address the concerns of the public that have been bringing this to the attention of various boards?
Well, the direction of our thinking on how to address those issues certainly does. But again, we aren't the last word. So that at some point in the near future, we hope to be able to get back to the township commissioners and with our recommendations. And from there, that will be a matter of public debate.
Why don't you mention the educational bits you did regarding that, David?
Thank you. With regard to the rabies issue, and this doesn't just address cats, but dogs as well, and wild animals. But Dr. Donato and I, as part of the Board of Health's continuing series, Radnor Health Matters, our last program was on rabies, and you can access that. I'm not sure it's being aired anymore on the township's cable channel, but you can access it by getting. It is. Jim Doling has just indicated to me it is being aired still, but if you want to see it at a time convenient to you, you may log on to the township's website and click on Radnor Health Matters, and you can see the program in that way. We also just recently conducted a rabies clinic. Citizens were able to get free rabies shots for their pets, and that was conducted again by Dr. Donato with some support from others. Yes, thank you, John. The numbers, the turnout, perhaps because of the television program, and we've been talking about this a lot, was a lot better than it has been in previous years. So we're glad of that. We're glad that people are taking the message that this is a very important way to protect your pet, to protect yourself and your loved ones by making sure that your pet has their rabies shots.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that report. We appreciate that. Anybody else have questions or comments? Okay. All right, then we are going to jump back into our agenda with the work group reports. And we'll start with the climate protection work group. Josh, do you want to update everyone on where we are with greenhouse gas action plan?
Sure, would love to. We have planned what we're calling a greenhouse gas action plan kickoff meeting. And this is a meeting where Brenda, Robin, and I are going to meet with some critical township department heads to talk about the early planning stages of our action plan, which is the plan that we're going to be putting together that will bullet some ideas on how to, not just ideas, bullet our plan to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to a goal that we will be setting in the future. This kickoff meeting is intended to pull together a first group of critical parties who have some stake in the matter, where they might be part of a planning of a department that has a large effect on our greenhouse gas emissions. And we want to make sure that we understand why they were created, why they're there, what their goals are, and we'd like to also understand what they've done in the recent past that might have affected our greenhouse gas emissions since we did our inventory, which was 2005. What projects they have planned in the near future that might affect greenhouse gas emissions, and then any ideas they might have of maybe how we can improve or reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in the future. It is a preliminary meeting, but we think it's a really important first step to bounce some ideas off each other, and see what they think about some ideas that we might have, and vice versa.
Right, so we'll be doing some initial brainstorming of ideas to include in the action plan that we'll be developing. And then I think, just important to note that our plan is to speak to key township staff, to speak to school districts since they were also included in it. And then we'll also be getting input from the public. Subsequently, we're just trying to do it in order to make sure, as you said, we understand the township operations first so that we have a better handle on that as we're putting together ideas that eventually will be part of our recommendations to the Board of Commissioners in terms of a township plan to reduce greenhouse gases.
Exactly. Yeah, this is not the end. This is merely the beginning. This is the first in a series of meetings that we'll be having, and of course the public's going to be invited, and the school district as well. So we've had just some preliminary efforts, but we're proceeding nicely into this second important phase. Our meeting with the township, our first meeting, is on the 7th of June. And our meeting with the school district has been set up for the 10th of June. And anything else I should mention? Robin, Brenda?
I was just thinking, we did try and establish a rough idea of when we would complete the action plan and bring forward a recommendation to the commissioners. I think didn't we sort of set a goal of when we would bring that forward? I was thinking that we did, but maybe we
I don't think
didn't
we
get that
set a
far.
time frame
Okay,
yet.
okay.
But what we did do is we set forth we've tried to draft an outline of all of the steps that we'd take in the process to make sure that we get the input from the staff, including police, I've just remembered that, and the school district, as well as any ideas that EAC members have, put together some stakeholders, and then what our thought was is at this meeting too, we may try to flesh out a little bit more of a firm schedule for that.
That's good,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, in addition, well, I guess does anyone have anything else under climate change that they want to add? I know that there were some emails floating around. Certainly, if any EAC members have thoughts or ideas or recommendations that they want us to incorporate into this process, please send them to Josh and we will incorporate them. He's been doing a lot of research into things that other townships have been doing, so we have lots of good ideas, but certainly encourage any ideas that EAC members want to pass along as well. Okay. All right, moving on to the sustainability work group. just wanted to note that we are still working on our next sustainability program. I've been communicating with Leslie Bowes over at the Radnor Conservancy about our next topic, and we're still trying to work that out. We've been talking a little bit about perhaps doing a session on sustainability in planning, and I know that's something we're going to be this year. The Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee is going to be working on looking at some of the changes in the zoning code, so perhaps looking at a sustainability series on greening up the planning process might dovetail nicely, but we're in the very preliminary stages of just discussing that and trying to think through who might have proper expertise for that, but that's where we are on planning for that. Sloan, do you want to give an update on WaterSense also?
Absolutely. Wanted to thank Melissa for getting the link up and running on the Radnor Green page. I think it looks really nice. She's got the logo and a link to the EPA WaterSense site. So I think there's a lot of good information there. Please, everybody, check it out. If you have any comments, please let us know. But I think it's nice. I think she also moved it to the front home page of Radnor, so it's one of the things you see when you go to the Radnor site. Also, as we discussed, I printed out some brochures, which I was planning to leave here with the township building. Why don't you just take one and pass it along, if you don't mind? I don't want to send them all around because I was going to leave most of them here. So just take one and send it down if you would. So there's one on green practices for your lawn, and some tips there, some facts about water use in the home with toilets and other appliances, and another one which is a sort of an overview of steps for saving water. So I made 10 copies or so of each, and was going to seek a good place to leave some of these for the township. And I don't know.
And these are also on the website? I'm sorry.
These are also on the website,
Okay.
but they're in the EPA partner website, so you have to kind of drill down, and there's a password which I have given Melissa. So, I think the thought was, step one, I could, supply a number of these, print them out, and leave them here. And I don't know, we've got John here, so I don't know whether it'd be okay just to put them. I know we have a stand for brochures. I was just going to leave 10 of each with the township building, and then perhaps send Melissa the link to where to get the original PDFs.
And then
with
put
the
them on the
Pasco.
page.
And then if we run out, she or somebody else could print another few. And we could even, I think we could probably even save it down to the page, but I'm not sure of that last bit.
My guess would be that EPA would probably want us to do that, given that it would just make it more accessible to
Yeah.
people. So I think we should
let me-
explore
let me-
that.
Let me try to do that as well.
And then that way,
Okay, that's a
Right.
good idea.
and then that way folks, want to see it but don't want to make a trip over here to the township building. It'll be
Yeah.
accessible even from home. Good. Thank you. Okay, I think those are our regular items under sustainability, unless anybody else has anything else on that. Our other work group, Community Environmental Education and Awareness, Heather leads that up and is not with us tonight. I don't know if anyone has anything to report on that or has talked to Heather about anything. No? Okay. All right. Okay. Julia, do you have anything to report out from Planning Commission? Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay. Then you know what, we can move right now to, Dave, you had some items you wanted to discuss. Why don't we do that right now, because it's getting to be about 6:30. I don't want to run out of time for you.
All right, thank you. My wife and I visited Williamsport, Pennsylvania, over the weekend, and that is becoming the site for Marcellus shale development. It's not that there are a lot of wells immediately in Williamsport, but they're all around it. The development is proceeding much more rapidly than I ever could have conceived of. There's something like 1,700 wells already drilled, with a total of 8,000 to be drilled in about another 2 years. The development scene is incredible. The hotels have been bought up by the gas developing companies in Williamsport, the motels, storage facilities so they can store their tanks, their supplies. They even developed a major railroad siding in the adjacent to the Williamsport Regional Airport with 15 acres of rail cars filled with steel piping going to be used for the installation of these wells. It is proceeding much faster than I could ever have imagined, and there's still a number of environmental issues that remain to be addressed. And some of these are coming forth with contamination of certain wells and contamination of certain streams in the area from the water that is used to fracture the Marcellus shale to release the gas. That is the main concern. It doesn't seem to be as much of an environmental issue in Texas, where there's a similar development, but in the Marcellus shale, they still have not solved the problem of what to do with the water that contains high concentrations of salts, other chemicals, which are deleterious to the environment. There are not yet enough inspectors to make sure that the wells are being drilled in an approved kind of fashion. The environmental impact reports have not been completely done yet because of the problem with treating the frack water, what you do with this toxic material that about a third of it comes back out of the ground, even though 2/3 stays in the ground with the fracturing process. So while we here in southeastern Pennsylvania will not be affected directly by these issues, all citizens of Pennsylvania, I do believe, will be affected by these issues, and we should be apprised as to what is happening and what is happening so rapidly in the area. Texas welders now, well, any welder in Pennsylvania can make $88 an hour working for the development of the rigs. So this is a very lucrative process. There are many residents from Texas in the Williamsport area because they're working for the development of the fields. So I just wanted to make this report that it is happening faster than could be imagined in recent memory.
Okay, thank you for the report. Robin, you have something to add? I just wanted to kind of just note for the record that I really can't personally get involved in any discussions regarding Marcellus shale, but feel free to make comments if you'd like.
Well, I just was going to thank Dave for mentioning the issue. I do think we should note that all citizens of the Commonwealth are affected by the fact that the state forests have been leased to the gas companies. A third of the forests have already been leased, and there's pressure to lease more because that has been one of the places to go to try and fill Pennsylvania's budget gap. And so that's a very important cost that we're all experiencing, and there is an effort to really push the state to establish a severance tax that would address some of the costs that are incurred just by the fact that we are authorizing the drilling. So those are issues that affect all Pennsylvanians and all taxpayers. The other thing I would just note is that there's a concern about whether or not the funds that will be needed to restore resources that are impacted will be, whether the Growing Greener program will be kept whole as they figure out how to cover the costs of restoration. So I think an important thing for us to think about is the fact that Growing Greener is really intended to provide for resource protection around the Commonwealth, and there shouldn't be a whole way in which all of those resources get, migrate to address the gas drilling issue. Thanks.
Could I add something?
Sure.
The Radnor League of Women Voters has been very active on this issue. I don't know if any of the articles that Roberta Winters has written are up on the website, but the Pennsylvania League of Women Voters website has a lot of very good information about the Marcellus Shale. Some other recent developments: the Pennsylvania House passed a moratorium. It was sponsored by Greg Vitale, but the Senate hasn't acted on it yet. And the moratorium is on selling off state forest land. There's the other issue that's come, well, there's two other issues that have come up recently. One is pipelines, that once they do this, there's going to be a tremendous need for pipelines and what that incurs. And secondly, they've recently found gas deposits in the shales that are above and below the Marcellus, and some of those are under Delaware County, whereas the Marcellus is nowhere near Delaware County. So it's intriguing, but we really need to get on top of it because the technology and the development is moving much faster than the regulatory apparatus.
Does anyone else want to make comments about Marcellus Shale? Okay, great, thank you. Getting back to the agenda, does anyone have any follow-up on old business items? No? Okay. On new business items, I have just a couple of things. One, I had circulated to the EAC members an invitation that we received to participate in a subcommittee of the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, as the subcommittee is being formed to look at open space and Parks and Rec, basically look at the existing plan that Radnor has for that and to update it. That's my understanding of it. Ann Poulin, who is our representative to the regular Open Space Committee, has volunteered to cover this one too, which I think probably makes sense. So there's some synergy there. But as I understand, the one that she's on currently as the EAC rep is the one that gets involved with, potential acquisitions of property, versus this is a subcommittee just trying to identify a plan, a path forward with regard to open space and Parks and Rec in the township. So, assume that's okay with everybody. Very good, great, thank you. Then the next item is I circulated a letter to everyone that we had received from, again, the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, advising that they are in the process of reviewing the township zoning codes to make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners on modifications to strengthen existing ordinances, update language, remove outdated provisions, things like that. And they've asked the EAC for issues, ideas, topics, and that we forward to them anything that we think would be worthwhile for them to focus on. And I know a few of you have already sent me some ideas, but I thought it would be worthwhile to take a little time at this meeting to maybe talk about some of the ideas that we have preliminarily. And I know this only came up recently, so maybe between now and the next meeting we can think a little bit harder and take a little closer look at what might be possible. But Robin, you sent me an email this afternoon that I didn't really get to focus on. You want to talk a little bit about your thoughts?
My suggestion was just that we look at making a recommendation about strengthening the floodplain ordinance.
Okay.
And I was talking to Julia a little bit before the meeting. I think probably it would not be difficult to find some model ordinances just through the state floodplain managers that I mean, what we would what I had suggested was something that might incentivize floodplain restoration and pulling existing, not just buildings, but paving out of the floodplain. And so there may be some creative work that's gone ahead of us and that we can tap into from model ordinances elsewhere. So
Okay.
I'll be exploring that.
All right, very good, great. And Sloan, you had made the point that we've been talking over the
Right.
course of time about trying to incentivize green building in the township. And that
Right.
this might be an opportunity to talk about what can be incorporated.
That's right. That's
Right.
right. About a year ago or so, we did some work talking to different towns that have green permitting programs enacted, and started sort of the ball rolling, but we haven't really made any formal recommendations.
Right.
And so this might be a good place to offer that and the work we did on that. So be
Right.
happy to.
Okay, maybe you and I can work together
Yeah.
and put together
Put
a
this-
proposal.
Happy to do that.
Because I think we can come at it from a few angles. One is something similar to the
Doylestown, yep.
program, which I think, is a great incentive type program where you get points and reduce fees, but given budgeting constraints, I guess I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in that basket. But maybe that can be part of the proposal, and then maybe we can come up with some ideas that can just green up the process of the sort of planning review and things like that.
Right,
To do a
right.
little legwork on that.
That's right, and I noted in the Haverford action plan, I think they have something about the permitting process, and I'm not sure it's a financial reward, but I think they may have some recognition, maybe some awards and things like that, which they have at least recommended that they do for folks who make a big effort on that front. So there may be other ways. I mean, the Doylestown approach is very much you get actual credit against your permitting charges for green building materials and methods. But there may be a way to make that revenue neutral, but in addition, there may be other non-monetary approaches that might make sense. So we can
Right.
definitely work together on that.
Okay, that sounds good. And Julia, has there been any talk about that type of an idea at planning? I mean, you
Well,
sort
one
of,
thing we've talked about in planning, because we've been thinking about this ordinance, opportunity to do some ordinance updating, is that oftentimes in planning, when things come to the planning commission, obviously we have to review it based on the existing zoning ordinances. And sometimes, once in a while, things will come up where we'll say, hey, we need to change that. That's the way it is now, but it would be better if it was X, Y, or Z. So a lot of little things come up. And that's one of the things that the group's going to be looking at when they go to review and sort of go through the zoning ordinances again and try to see where we need help. With the greening, the green building ordinances, those sorts of things, we'd like to move more in a direction of, the field of planning is moving more towards trying to require that builders, townships, set their sights more on restoring existing problems within a township boundary or within a county boundary, whatever level they're talking at, rather than just, it's sort of like going beyond do no harm to do some help, And that's just a current theory in planning. It's part of, I know, part of the sustainability work that a lot of people are doing. Getting that into the zoning ordinance, however, is, it's difficult. And we're looking now for maybe some model zoning ordinances. I know that Doylestown has done, I haven't read their ordinance about the permitting credits that they get. I don't know if that's something that will work here, but
and I'm not sure that it's in an ordinance or whether it's just
it's
a
just part of the
permitting
program.
Right.
Okay.
Which makes it a little bit easier on the one hand, because you don't have to get into the ordinance. On the other hand, you do have to get the buy-in, because
Sure.
if you're getting permit fee reductions based on the green things that you do, you got to somehow make that up somewhere, whether that's by, increasing all the fees across the board so that you are
And generally
revenue
in
neutral.
planning, when you're not in a situation where you can offer people a financial gain,
Right.
what you generally can offer them is more of what they are doing, you know, a larger building footprint, a higher height restrictions. These are the things you can offer in
Right.
exchange for the things that will meet the needs of your town. So for instance, you know, a very basic scenario is if you want more open space, you say you can require more open space, but you offer a higher building, you know, so that everybody gets what they need. And that way you're not putting the brakes on building and planning, but you're just moving it forward more in a direction that will shape the township the way you want to shape the township.
And in order to do, I mean, is that happening already, or do you need additional authority in the code to allow or to facilitate that?
That cannot happen unless it's been changed in the code
Okay.
previously.
All right, so then that may be where we want to focus.
So that has to happen first.
Okay.
The, Westchester has a height restriction, and allows for an easing of height restrictions based on green building.
But they would
Ju-
have it built into their code.
It's built into the
Yeah.
code, exactly. So maybe if you're looking for like a model.
And
they
there might be
apply
something
that.
besides height restriction, there might be other things that I don't know about that are appealing to builders who also want to do green building, but they have to make it work out for them financially, you know, to get those benefits. I'm sure there's other incentives as well.
This wouldn't actually include the building code, building codes themselves, would it?
Well, what it said is to make recommendations, modifications to the Board of Commissioners. Our objective is to strengthen and put more teeth into existing ordinances, update existing language where applicable, delete sections that are obviously outdated. Put more teeth into existing ordinances.
Okay, well, I can send you some information just on the energy efficiency building code that I know the U.S. Green Building Council and Sierra Club has been really encouraging townships to adopt, because there's a major increase in energy efficiency with that new code, so.
Okay, why don't you
if
send it
that's- okay.
along, right, yeah, and I'm not sure, I'm not sure what authority the township has vis-à-vis building codes and what they can do different from the state, but you know what, we can send it along, and, you know, the people that are in charge of that and evaluating that probably are talking with council, and they can
Great.
sort that out.
Good,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, good. Very good. Does anyone have any other new business? Or any other reports they want to make? Things they want to say? No? Okay, great. Then I think we're all set. Thank you very much for your attendance. Meeting is adjourned.